Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. In today's capital world, the hottest topic is the deal between BYD and India. The Modi team, which has been clamoring to catch up with Made in China, has encountered difficulties in purchasing 1,000 new energy buses. In the big circle, we finally have to turn to the Chinese company BYD. Since India placed an order with BYD, there have been constant rumors between the two, and it is impossible to distinguish between true and false for a while. First, it is about the new energy bus order worth $2 billion. The final news is that India has compromised 80% the advance payment. The two parties reached an agreement. But soon there was another news that India rejected BYD's $1 billion factory construction plan. After rejecting India's drone order, Modi's team couldn't hold back anymore. The continuous investigation on BYD was directly launched, and a huge fine of 730 million rupees, 63.6 million yuan, was imposed on the grounds of alleged underpayment of taxes and fees on imported cars. Will Li Shufu admit it? Where should Chinese companies cooperate with the Indian market? BYD was fined heavily. According to the data provided by India, BYD will sell only 1,960 pure electric vehicles in the Indian market in 2022, and the production of vehicles still relies on India's electric bus factory, which can be said to have taken into account the interests of India. But it seems that this BYD's only joint venture factory in India will also be severely squeezed. India rejected BYD's $1 billion investment. In addition to the retaliation element, there is another very important reason. Assembly work, but also bring in the supply chain. India has always wanted to introduce Tesla, but it can't afford China's conditions. After a subsidy of $10 billion was given, Musk had some ideas, but the supply chain is extremely imperfect and people's consumption capacity in the case of insufficient conditions. Tesla probably will not compromise so easily to build a factory, which is why Modi deadly smashed BYD. However, BYD has been following the whole industry chain line, and it is impossible to bring the production of parts and components to India in the short term. Moreover, Modi has never promised any subsidies, especially in the context of Xiaomi's 4.8 billion assets being confiscated. Under the circumstances, Li Shufu would definitely not be willing to spend huge costs to build such a supply chain full of unknowns. The model adopted by Tesla is relatively cost-effective. When deciding which country to build a factory in, it will encourage supply chain companies to build branch factories, and this part of the cost is not borne by Tesla, forming the cost of the industrial chain. It is also relatively small. Tesla's Mexican factory uses this method. BYD's components are basically self-developed and self-produced, so it is difficult to meet India's requirements. India has now completely lost its international reputation, and it imposes huge fines on foreign investment companies at every turn. Therefore, for Tesla and BYD, the safest way is to use imported parts and assemble them in India, which can save money. A lot of taxes and fees are dropped to ensure sufficient profits. All adopt this method, and the Modi team's complaints are naturally great. Now it is fortunate that BYD did not build a second factory in India, which not only saved $1 billion, but also avoided all kinds of follow-up nonsense. But this time the 730 million rupees is estimated to be unavoidable. India also explained the fine. It responded that the tax rate for the import of electric vehicles is 70% to 100%, but it is only 15% to 35% for parts and components. BYD has not built a parts factory in India. In the process of importing parts, there are cases where batteries and motors have already been mounted on the frame, so 70% to 100% is charged. Did BYD admit it? Such a fine is definitely questionable, but if you want to rap with India, there is no chance of winning at all, because all their rules can be changed now, and they sold less than 2,000 cars, but they were fined 63.6 million. The profit may not be so high, and BYD has been properly taken advantage of. After the experience of BYD, DJI directly rejected the purchase order of Indian drones, and the country was also very witty, and then the official announced the measures of restricting the shipment of drones, which helped DJI to keep international reputation. Apparently, India is doing this out of embarrassment. It has always wanted BYD to build a complete automobile manufacturing supply chain, but BYD is only obsessed with the assembly plant. The 10% advance payment previously offered to order new energy buses is likely to just cheat BYD. With India's current international reputation, it is very likely that the remaining payments will not be paid or not paid on time. If you want to learn from the Biden team, but you have no strength, Chinese companies can do without this market, but India cannot lose easy to use cheap made in China. If the business environment does not recover, Chinese companies will definitely withdraw from the Indian market one after another. By then, it will be obvious who will be in a more embarrassing situation. How do you understand this? Thank you for watching this video. What do you think of this video?